you're an entrepreneur just starting out, or you're in a growth phase in your journey, or you just want to hear from a fellow entrepreneur about the journey, I'm just sharing from the heart today about my own journey starting my business, Chama Capital. So, I'm from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised. Both of my parents are from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised. So, this is my home. This is my community, which I'm committed to serving. Grew up here, had the opportunity to go to Yale for college, where I studied psychology, had amazing international experiences. I studied abroad in Brazil, which really brought in the international perspective that has been a theme throughout my career. Met amazing friends, got to live on the East Coast for the first time after growing up in the Midwest. Had the opportunity at coming out of Yale to work on Wall Street. I worked for a big Wall Street firm in finance and investment banking, got to work with big corporations and just excellent training program, learning the ins and outs of financial analysis. Really enjoyed what I was learning. I always loved numbers. I was always into like math and the numbers and the data. That was always kind of like my thing. But I also had a creative side. So I was a teen actor with Looking Glass Theater Company here in Chicago. I played piano. I was just always someone who had a lot of different interests. Let me know if you can relate to that, right? Because it can sometimes be hard when we have all of these different interests to figure out like what to focus on. And that's something that I went through in high school, in college. I was also on the swim team in high school. Also played softball, water polo. I love sports. Even to this day, I'm like the biggest Chicago Bulls fan. So I love sports. I love the arts. I now go to plays. Just went to a comedy show over the weekend, going to a play this weekend. If you can relate to me, like sometimes it's really hard when we have so many different interests and passions to like balance it all, right? And so when it came to deciding on a career path and kind of bringing everything together, like I knew I liked finance, I liked business, I liked working with a lot of different types of companies and different industries. So that kind of tied in with my like multiple passions and interests, right? But I wanted to do something that was more impactful than working with these big corporations. So I then worked for an impact investing firm that was investing in microfinance institutions around the world. And that was when I got to go to Ghana for the first time. And that was a life-changing experience. It was my first time on the continent of Africa. I was just welcomed, so welcomed with open arms. Was working there and saw the impact of financing for these entrepreneurs on their businesses and their families. But also just as a Black American, it was so eye-opening, just a beautiful experience for me to go and experience Ghana. And I ultimately decided to do a work assignment there where I was on the ground. I'm finding companies for investors who are interested in investing and wanted that on the ground presence, someone finding deals and investments for them. So really, as you can see, the thread throughout my career has been finance and using finance to empower people, to empower communities, to empower people, and to expand opportunity, right? That really became the thread after these work experiences that I had internationally and impact investing and working with small businesses globally. After being away from home at this point for 10 years, I decided I think I'm ready to come home. And I moved back to Chicago and I've been here for the past 7 years. And first, I pursued my MBA at the University of Chicago, where I focus on finance, entrepreneurship, and strategic management. I interned in venture capital and thought that I was going to go into venture capital. But there's always a but, right? On our journeys as entrepreneurs and even just in life, like something happens that just changes everything for us, right? Me with some of those international experiences, going to college on the East Coast, studying abroad in Brazil, right? Those are just some of those hallmarks. Think about what some of those hallmarks or highlights on your journey, those turning points on your own journey, right? As a business owner, as a budding entrepreneur, as a creative, like what are those highlights, right? Because those are going to be some of the indicators of where you might be headed on your journey, where to focus on that next step on your business journey, right? So take some time to reflect and think about what those highlights are for you. So during my MBA program, I worked in venture capital and thought that that was what I was going to pursue coming into business school. Venture capital, be an investor, and I wanted to focus on investing in underrepresented founders, women, people of color, etc. But when I worked in venture, I just had this revelation. I was like, so in venture capital, It's not a good fit as far as financing for most businesses because venture investors have these extremely high expectations as far as growth. They are looking for these companies that with the investment that they put into a company is going to lead to this crazy growth. But that's not really a good fit for most businesses. Maybe 0.5%, maybe 1% of businesses, it's a good fit as far as financing for. So what about the other 99% of businesses who may not be growing as quickly, but they have steady growth, they have strong revenue, but are still great businesses. And so I realized that I wanted to find ways to extend financing to women business owners, but I didn't want to just do it via venture investing. I wanted to do something more holistic, right? And I wanted to support women business owners. So the first step that I took, which I would recommend, is to hone in, like figure out who the person is that you want to help. For me, I decided it was women business owners. I had experience advising hundreds of them. And I was like, you know what? I want to find a solution for them. So I first studied what is the main pain point facing women entrepreneurs with a focus on women of color, but all women entrepreneurs. And I did this research project, right? Because what happened while I was in business school was the pandemic hit right at the beginning of my last quarter of business school. So instead of being out at all these parties with friends and events and everything as I'm going into my last quarter of business school, I was in the house. And so a friend of mine who was also in business school at a different school, we ended up embarking on this research project together to hone in on what is that key pain point facing the people that we want to help, women business owners. So we researched, and the issue that just came up over and over and over again was access to capital. Access to capital. And so then, after figuring out who it is that I wanted to help, right? One, two, studying and honing in on what really is that main pain point that they are facing. Step two, then decided to do customer discovery interviews, interviewing women business owners about their experiences with finding access to capital. When I tell you what I heard, the stories that I heard in these interviews, I was like, just blatant discrimination, women telling me that they just felt so disrespected when trying to find financing for their businesses. The stress that they went through. I remember hearing one woman say that because she didn't have access to adequate capital for her burgeoning business, which was making over $1 million in revenue, by the way, and still couldn't get access to sufficient capital for her business. She said that the stress that she felt 1 month when she was trying to figure out how she was going to make payroll for her company, she said the stress was so bad that she felt like she was gonna die. I was like, whoa, this is a big problem. And it's even worse than I thought as far as just the mental turmoil and stress that it can cause. And so that was when I really, after doing those customer discovery interviews, confirming that there's a really big problem, really digging deeper into what is so difficult about the problem, like some of the stories that I shared, right? Like what was difficult about it, just navigating the world, understanding what the best type of financing is, going into those conversations with bankers or other funders and feeling confident, dealing with the disrespect. So really just kind of digging deeper, like, okay, access to capital is the problem, but what actually drives, like what's actually difficult and painful about those problems? What are some of those actual, like in practice, what those things are that are so difficult about the problem? That's the next step you can take that will come out of your customer discovery interviews. And then from there, that was when I launched the business. I mean, I never knew that this email from my friend just saying, hey, I've been thinking about women entrepreneurs and trying to find a solution. And I wanted to see what we could do. And I just have this idea. Let's talk about it. And that was an email that literally has changed my life. So many things happened and also aligned. For example, I was in a class in that last quarter of business school that was focused. It was a gender lens class focused on women in different roles, such as women as CEOs, venture capitalists, private equity executives. And I was able to synthesize all of the research that I had been doing on women entrepreneurs for a pitch for the final project for my class. And my professor was so supportive. She was like, this is amazing. Let me know how I can support you and connect you. It was just amazing how things aligned, and that will happen sometimes. But what I want you to also take away, besides kind of some of the steps that I described along my own journey, which I would recommend you taking as well, just as far as a few guideposts on your journey of deciding whether and how to pursue your business. Something I'd also say is so important. I talked in the last video about you got to have your support system, right? You got to have accountability, and moral support is really key. But I want to also add passion. Something that I knew, right? I knew going into it that building a startup is really difficult, really stressful. You have to navigate extreme ambiguity. It can be really tough. And so I knew that the issue that I was focusing on, the problem that my startup was focused on solving, I knew it had to be something that I was super passionate about. And that just, I was just so focused and committed to being a part of solving that even when it got tough, even when I felt like, you know what, I don't know if I can do this, that I would be reminded of those stories that I heard of those women that I'd, had those conversations with. I'm building for them. I'm solving for them. They're my people, and I'm committed to helping them. So figure out what that problem is for you that you are just so passionate about solving, the people that you are so passionate about helping through the solution that you're building, the product that you're offering, the community that you're building, right? That even when things get tough, even when you face setbacks, even when people may not be supportive, right? I mentioned I had a professor and others in my life who have been very supportive. Not everyone will be supportive, but what is that problem? Who are those people that you are so committed to solving that even when things get tough, you're reminded, you're committed, you're still dedicated, because this is it's just a calling for you. It's a purpose for you that you're not going to give up on, even when you have to pivot, even when things look different. That this is the problem that you're committed to solving. So think about what that problem is for you, who those people are for you, your people that you're building solutions for through your business, through your community, through the creative offerings that you have. So that's just a bit of my story of building Trauma Capital, which I launched in 2020 and is still running today. We're focused on increasing access to financing for women-owned businesses through our grants database, our assessment tool, right? I heard in customer discovery interviews that it was hard for women to figure out what type of financing is the right fit. So I built an assessment tool that helps them figure that out and then gives them referrals on to the type of financing that may be the best fit for them, right? And I heard that from those customer discovery interviews and testing and trying things out and getting feedback. So that's where I am today. And it's been tough. There's been struggles, there's been obstacles, but I know that this problem of access to financing for underserved entrepreneurs is the problem that I'm called to serving you, budding entrepreneurs, growing entrepreneurs, just sharing my knowledge and my experiences that I've had with you to help you on your own journey. That's what I'm all about. That's what this channel is all about. So thank you for tuning in. Share one of the highlights from your journey that you know has motivated you or brought you to where you are today, to where you are passionate about the business that you're starting or building now. I want to hear about it. Let's share and let's keep each other accountable and keep each other inspired, because we're making an impact through our businesses. Our people are out there and they need to hear from us, and they need what we have to offer. Someone needs exactly what only you can offer. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.